Malik had saved for months to buy the perfect sneakers, but when he stepped into the store, things took a dark turn. Two security officers accused him of loitering and shoved him out, while bystanders filmed the chaos. The video went viral, sparking outrage. But what happened next would change everything. Was this just a bad day, or the start of something much bigger? It was a busy Saturday afternoon at the upscale shopping mall in downtown Los Angeles. The air hummed with the typical weekend energy, shoppers moving in and out of stores, their conversations blending into a background murmur. At the foot of the escalator, 17-year-old Malik Carter stood, his eyes fixed on the latest sneakers he had worked tirelessly for. His hands brushed over the sleek material, checking the price tag, his hard-earned money finally allowing him to buy what he'd wanted for months. But before he could take a moment to savor the satisfaction of his small victory, two mall security officers approached. Officer Daniels, a stocky, middle-aged white man, cut through the air with a sharp tone. "Excuse me, sir," he said, his voice heavy with an unnecessary authority. "You're loitering. You need to leave." Malik froze, his heart instantly racing. The words felt like a slap, completely out of nowhere. He hadn't done anything wrong. All he had done was stand there, quietly admiring the shoes. His hand gripped the box in his mind, but he hadn't even touched them. Confusion settled in, quickly followed by a sinking feeling. "Why?" Malik's voice wavered with disbelief. "I'm just looking at the shoes." Officer Clark, a taller figure, placed his hand on the baton at his side, his posture more aggressive now. "Don't make a scene," he warned, his voice steady but carrying a threat. "You've been here too long. Leave now, or we'll call the police." Malik's throat tightened. His eyes darted to the growing crowd of shoppers who had begun to take notice. Their whispers were sharp, eyes trained on him, some pulling out phones to film the scene. His chest tightened with humiliation, his skin burning under their stares. He was being singled out, treated like a criminal for doing nothing more than existing in the wrong place at the wrong time. Before he could process what was happening, the officers moved in, grabbing his arms and pushing him toward the mall's exit. Fear twisted in Malik's gut, but anger flared up just as quickly. This wasn't just a misunderstanding. This was something deeper. Malik stepped out into the cold, bright afternoon, his phone buzzing relentlessly in his pocket. As soon as he glanced at the screen, his heart sank. The video of what had just happened in the mall was everywhere, flooding social media, spreading like wildfire. People were sharing it, commenting, questioning, and in some cases, condemning the security officer's actions. The comments were a blur of disbelief and anger, all asking the same question. Why was he kicked out for doing nothing wrong? Each notification was like a punch to Malik's gut. He felt the eyes of the world on him, strangers dissecting his every move. A deep sense of shame crawled over him, blending with a fiery surge of rage. How could this be happening? He had done nothing wrong. He had been minding his own business, just like anyone else. Yet here he was, the target of something he couldn't control, something that felt so unfair, so out of his hands. But underneath it all, a darker, more consuming emotion simmered. Helplessness. A gnawing sense that no matter what he did, the world might never see him for who he truly was. To so many people, he was just another black teenager in the wrong place at the wrong time. Yet even in the middle of that storm of emotions, Malik knew something deep in his gut. He couldn't let this slide. This wasn't just about him. It was about the countless others who had been humiliated, or worse, treated unfairly for no reason other than their race. He couldn't remain silent. He had to fight back, not just for his dignity, but for everyone who had ever been made to feel small by a system stacked against them. What Malik didn't know, standing there with his phone vibrating in his hand, was that his father, Marcus Carter, was already on the case. Marcus was an influential entrepreneur and civil rights advocate who had spent years fighting for the marginalized communities in Los Angeles. The viral video soon made its way to him, and he would not let this injustice go unchallenged. Marcus sat in his home office, staring at the video on his laptop screen. His heart pounded in his chest as he watched his son, Malik, being humiliated by the security officers. The image of Malik being escorted out of the mall, helpless and confused, sent a surge of fury through Marcus. This wasn't just a random incident. It was the kind of thing he had spent his life fighting against. But this time, it was different. This time, it was personal. For years, Marcus had worked tirelessly to break down barriers, advocate for equal treatment, and fight systemic racism in his community. He had battled for justice, for those whose voices were ignored, for those who were treated as less than human because of their skin color. But seeing his own son, a teenager he loved more than anything in the world, fall victim to the very system he had spent decades trying to change, shook him to his core. His hands clenched into fists as he felt a wave of anger rise inside him. This wasn't just about a video. It was about something much deeper. It was about a society that had allowed this kind of behavior to continue. A system that profiled, degraded, and oppressed people based on their race. Without a moment's hesitation, Marcus picked up his phone. His voice was calm, measured, but the coldness in it was unmistakable. "Get in touch with the mall's management," he said to his lawyer. "We're going to sue them for racial profiling." It wasn't just a legal battle. This was about making a statement. They couldn't let this slide. Meanwhile, Malik stood outside, the weight of the world pressing down on his shoulders. He was on the phone with his best friend, trying to shake off the humiliation he felt. "I don't want to make a big deal of it, man," he said, his voice strained. "I just wanted to buy shoes." But his friend's response was firm. "You don't have to make a big deal of it, Malik. It's a big deal already. You've got to stand up for yourself. Don't let them get away with it." Marcus's heart clenched as he listened to Malik's words, knowing that his son had every right to be angry. It was time to fight back, not just for Malik, but for everyone who had ever been mistreated. The lawsuit made national headlines. The mall's management was forced to respond, and the 2 security officers who had unfairly targeted Malik were put under investigation. In a public statement, Marcus Carter condemned the mall for the discrimination his son had faced and called on other businesses to hold their employees accountable for racial bias. As the legal battle progressed, the public rallied behind the Carters, organizing protests and petitions demanding justice. The officers were eventually fired, and the mall settled out of court, publicly apologizing to Malik. But the true victory came for Malik when he found his voice, not just as the victim, but as someone who could inspire others. The experience had shaken him, but it also gave him the courage to step up, to speak out. He realized that this wasn't just about a pair of shoes. It was about his right to exist without fear or prejudice. The final scene shows Malik walking into a new store, his head held high, knowing that justice, while slow, had come in the end.